Hi friends! Today we're talking about homegrown food, meat and eggs specifically, and why they taste different than what you buy at the grocery store. Some people have a hard time liking homegrown food, so we'll talk about some tips and strategies to help you adjust to the taste of homegrown. If you're getting ready to raise your own eggs and meat, this episode will help you avoid the ultimate homestead disappointment, not liking the food you raise. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goat-Wise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey there. If you've been waiting for the perfect time to stock your freezer with high-quality, nutrient-dense goat meat, this is it. Right now, when you order a whole goat from Dry Creek Heritage Meats, you'll get 24 pounds of grass-fed, grass-finished goat meat, plus free shipping, free bones and organs for making the most nutritious broth, and as a special bonus, a free 5.5-quart Lodge enameled cast iron Dutch oven. That's right, my favorite Dutch oven, completely free, so you can braise, slow cook, and simmer your goat meat to perfection. This deal is first come, first serve, and if you order early, your goat will arrive in time for Easter celebrations. But don't wait, this offer ends Friday, March 7th. And here's a little extra for my loyal podcast listeners. If you've grabbed your exclusive podcast gift card, you can stack it with this deal for even more savings. If you haven't claimed yours yet, go to drycreekheritagemeats.com/podcast special and grab it now. Don't miss out. Head to drycreekheritagemeats.com/podcast special to place your order today. I'm excited to get this healthy, delicious meat onto your table. Here's what's happening on the ranch. We warmed up above 50 degrees Fahrenheit a couple days this week, and the snow is disappearing fast. Most of it is running off because the frost hasn't completely come out of the ground. So that's a little disappointing, but pretty normal for us. By the time this episode airs, we might be covered in snow again. There's another storm headed our way. My husband calls it third winter. Overall, this has been a pretty mild winter for us so far. But it's not over yet. The ice broke loose on the river and some geese have returned. The prairie dogs are peeking out of their holes and tormenting the dogs. And everyone is feeling a little spunky. Spring is on its way. We found another egg stash. I'm starting to feel rich with the current price of eggs. And my husband got the nesting boxes put up in the barn, so hopefully we can stop the daily hide and seek for eggs. I saw on the internet that eggs illuminate under black light. I think we should try that out. A little game of black light hide and seek in the barn after dark. It could be fun. We have a friend, he's in my 4-H club, and he's a chicken genius. Really, the kid knows everything about chickens. But he needs to test his incubator because he had some issues hatching out his last expensive eggs, so he and my daughter put our roosters in with the hens so he can get some fertile eggs to test out his incubator. I might get some chicks without having to do all the work this year. That's a win-win. He gets his incubator dialed in, and I get chicks just for providing the eggs. Last week in the email newsletter, I wrote about the highly disappointing eggs I bought at the grocery store. And it got me thinking about something that I think is important to know when you're getting started or considering raising your own food. Homegrown food tastes different than what we're used to from the grocery store. Most of the time when you hear people say this, it's always in a positive way, like, homegrown food tastes so much better than store-bought food. But for some people, that's not always the case. I think chickens illustrate this point the best. First, the genetics. In the commercial chicken world, most layers are white leghorns and most meat birds are Cornish cross. Both of these have been bred for extremes, crazy high egg production in the leghorns and almost freakish growth in meat production in the Cornish cross. In turkeys, this would be the giant white. I'm not saying this is necessarily bad. You'll have to decide that for yourself. But it is strange to own these breeds and see how different they are compared to heritage breeds when it comes to instinct, behavior, and growth. We know that in the case of the Cornish cross and giant white turkeys, they can't naturally reproduce. Is that okay? I'm not saying one way or the other. It's just something to think about. So how does that play into the flavor of the meat or eggs they produce? I think because of the rapid growth in meat birds and high production in these layers, the flavor in the meat and eggs is diluted, for lack of a better word. Then, in commercial production, we take those genetics and feed them a diet that is not what they would typically eat because we're pushing them for efficiency and extremely fast growth and production. Chickens and turkeys aren't feasting on their diverse diet, including bugs. They're eating primarily grains in a ration that's carefully formulated to maximize production for both meat and eggs. This results in a product that has weak, watered down, even bland flavor. And that's what we're all used to if we've been eating grocery store food our whole lives. In hogs, there's definitely a genetic component. For a long period of time, commercially raised hogs were bred for extreme muscling, which resulted in higher meat production per animal. But, just like in the Cornish cross chickens, the meat quality left a lot to be desired. I'm sure you've cooked a grocery store pork chop that was so dry it was a choking hazard. I've been away from the commercial pork industry for a long time, so I'm not sure if the extreme muscling genetics are still a big force, but I do know when I've bought pork at the grocery store, it's very disappointing. In pork, the flavor difference doesn't seem to be a difficult adjustment for most people, maybe because it's less dramatic. I don't have any experience with 100% pasture-raised pork because that's just not a feasible production system here. I assume it would be a more dramatic contrast. The biggest difference I find with homegrown pork is in tenderness and juiciness. For most people, this is a welcome adjustment. We raise a few pigs every year, and they're different, leaps and bounds above the store-bought pork. Last year, I had a long list of people that wanted pigs, and I couldn't meet that demand. So I went on a search to find pigs that would be the best you could possibly eat. And I found them. We've partnered with a local farmer who is a genius at raising hogs, and he raises all the feed for them too, so it's a great situation. We butchered our first group of hogs from him last fall, and everyone, including us, was blown away by the taste difference and quality. Seriously, it's the best pork I've ever eaten. We'll have 10 of those hogs available on the website soon to ship in June and July, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure you get on the email list at drycreekheritagemeats.com. Last year's customers are already asking for more, so I expect they'll go fast. When we talk about ruminant animals, I think it gets even more interesting. Even though there is a genetic component, the taste differences are more related to what they've been fed. If you were raised hunting and eating wild game, grass-fed meat is probably delicious to you. We hunted, but we didn't eat wild game often because my mom didn't like it. That's kind of weird, I know, but it is what it is, and I grew up with a preference for grain-fed meat. The grass-fed marketing folks have done a tremendous job of selling the health and environmental benefits of grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And I don't think they're wrong. But grass-fed beef is highly variable, and sometimes it's awful, either because of the way it was raised, or how it was cooked, or both. I talked about this a bit in episode 45, and I'll link that in the show notes. Good grass-fed beef isn't as easy as just don't give them grain. There's a way to do it right. Anyway, people try grass-fed meat and they don't like it, and they wonder what's wrong with them for not liking it. Nothing's wrong with you. You've been eating grain-finished meat your whole life. Grass-fed is going to be different. The taste will not be what you're used to, and it needs to be raised well and cooked correctly. Some people are raising them the way it needs to be done to produce a great product, and they're doing a darn good job at it. But finding those folks can be a bit of a gamble. I think sometimes people don't want to admit that they don't like farm fresh eggs or homegrown chicken or grass-fed meat. It's supposed to taste better, but to some people it doesn't, and I suppose they blame themselves and think they just don't have the taste for homegrown food. It's okay if it doesn't taste better to you at first. You've been fed bland, flavorless meat and eggs your whole life. This is a big adjustment to make. The ultimate homesteading disappointment is when people put this incredible amount of effort into raising their own food, and then the meat or eggs are disappointing, maybe even unpalatable to them. The discouragement is enough to make anyone quit. If you're one of those people who absolutely love everything homegrown and wild from the very first bite, that's great. But if you're not, all is not lost. Here are some tips to help you adjust your taste to homegrown food. Start with eggs. Before you ever buy your first chickens, find someone who has laying hens and switch to homegrown eggs. Ask about what the chickens are being fed. At first, it's easier to switch to eggs from hens that are getting a bagged feed from the farm store. Once those taste good and normal to you, you can switch to pasture-raised hens that will have more forage and bugs in their diet and produce healthier eggs. But if you prefer eggs from hens eating a commercial feed, you can do that when you raise your own. If you can't find someone with laying hens, try the grocery store eggs that are not the commercial white eggs in the store brand carton. Do your research though. The labeling on eggs is misleading, and you may still be getting commercial eggs in a pretty wrapper. If you're ready to raise your own, start small so you're not overrun with eggs, especially while you're trying to adjust to the homegrown flavor. Pork and beef. Find a rancher who raises them if you can. I know that's easy for me to say, and a heck of a lot harder to do, especially when you don't speak rancher or butcher talk. But if you're planning on raising your own, you'll be glad you invested in buying some homegrown meat to try before you make the huge investment in raising your own. One of the big reasons we're shipping meat is to make quality meat accessible to the people who want it, even if you're not our neighbors. You can try homegrown meat without ever trying to track down a local farmer or rancher. With ruminant meat, there's a healthy middle ground between the commercial long-term grain-fed meat you get in the grocery store and 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And that is a thoughtful balance of pasture-raised and short-term grain-finished that I think optimizes flavor while promoting animal health and environmental improvement. And that's the beef we're selling. We're experimenting with grass-fed, grass-finished, but I'm going to make sure we have it figured out before we offer that for sale. When it comes to the investment you make in filling your freezer, I'm not going to be guessing about the quality of the meat we raise and source. So when we get that figured out, we'll be offering excellent grass-fed beef too. It's a long game, but I'm confident the work will be worth it. When you're looking at buying a beef, go for short-term grain-finished first. It'll taste different than grocery store beef, but not so different that you won't like it. It's an easy adjustment to make, and by the time you eat your way through that beef, you'll have a preference for that flavor. And then the transition to a high-quality grass-fed beef, if you choose to do that, will be much easier. I hope this episode helps you prepare for raising and eating your own meat and eggs, and consider some of the factors that affect meat quality and taste in homegrown food. I want you to have success in your homesteading journey, especially when it comes to raising food. If you have any questions, head on over to the free community and start a conversation at bit.ly/getgowisecommunity. And make sure you're on the insiders list to get notified when beef and pork sales open up. That's at getgowise.com/insider. See you next week. Hey there. Thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email, linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.